event totally met my expectations. I really enjoyed the fact that it was very interactive.
I really enjoyed the speakers. They made us interact and think about the whole topic.
Cultural diplomacy is the foremost and the most important issue that connects the idea of strategic autonomy.
I'm totally gonna invest in more.
Well, we are here to discuss the role of cultural diplomacy. It's a concept that has been repeatedly and constantly used in the last decade, but I think we haven't really understood both its content and its scope and impact on how it transforms modern diplomacy.
I want to welcome you all. We're going to discuss how the European Union is using cultural diplomacy. In the recent years, many researchers have researched cultural diplomacy and have tried to find out how useful it can be.
The first notion or concept that is very much attached and tied to cultural diplomacy is the concept of public diplomacy. What is public diplomacy after all? It's not about state-to-state diplomacy, but state-to-people diplomacy. So we are targeting the hearts and the minds of people. The second is the concept of nation branding. A third is the idea of soft power, and that comes from IR, international relations. So the term soft power as an alternative to hard power, not military means, but basically the power of attraction by culture, by trade, by social interactions, bringing together countries and actually exercising influence one country to the other.
Europe is moving towards the direction of the institution of the people. It's not the countries or the institution anymore. And in that perspective, the notion, the states, when they interact, there is not something vague. Those who interact are the people. Initially, in the past, when we mentioned about culture, we meant one thing only: arts and letters. Big personalities, literature, movies, which is also a commercial side, poetry, painting, whatever. Now we have moved beyond that, and when we mention of culture, then we mean the way of life, we mean cultural heritage. We actually include, in many respects, any interaction between peoples that's not commercial in nature. And even that, the commercial nature, is under a question mark. Hollywood,
Bollywood, music industry, whatever. These are cultural industries, right? They produce some outputs with a huge intervention and influential potential.
I was wondering how the collective memory of the different cultures and member states of the European Union influences unity and diversity, and whether a single collective memory is necessary to facilitate further integration in the Union.
The cultural dialogue is not just something that, okay, we get it. In order to implement it properly, there is a process that you have to follow. There is a training. Intercultural competences are essential in order to do it. So in that respect, this interculturality has to become part of our educational agenda.
We are not being taught, young people, pupils, even students are not being taught properly European history. And without knowing what has happened the last 2 centuries, how can we possibly try to build bridges and overcome these tensions? Now, Erasmus is, I think, the big success of the European integration. I think it should be compulsory traveling abroad for at least 1 semester of your studies. Experiencing different cultures.
Be sure that you will make mistakes and then go back, correct them, readdress them, and so on and so forth. Because I've realized that in debating, it's more important not only to be trained as a debater, but to listen to a lot of debates, because then you get used to the notion of listening to arguments.
Over the last years, we have seen that the EU is focusing a lot on green policies and protecting the environment and how we're going to save the planet. Do you think that the European cultural diplomacy has also an environmental dimension?
The SDGs and culture. What they did is the relevance of culture in those SDGs. And this is where we get it. But then, if you see the implementation of the European programs, you see that the need for environmental sensitivities to take that, in addition to, of course, gender balance and other elements. But the environmental issue is always there. And for me, it's interesting when you go and see the participants, how they are aware of this element and they act properly. And this is the best way to do it, because when you go and interact with another one, with the Chinese, with an English one, the way you act is a reflection of this belief system.
Northern Europe has quite different cultural and economic and political views than the south of Europe. Do you think this north-to-south divide is there in Europe? And if so, to what extent does that pose a threat to European unity?
I don't think this is an obstacle. The question is, how do you build bridges between these cultures?
It's a process that we have to go through if we want to really manage to understand each other and avoid those kind of problems, and therefore building bridges.
It's all about communication. We need communication experts and specialists to be able to convey the commonalities. And I'm quite confident and optimistic that this is the way forward.
Thank you.